Welcome, everybody. Today's presentation is going to be something new. It's going to be a chat with Chris, open mic. But I wanted to do this one this way this week, just to sort of break the ice, say thank you for taking time out of your schedule to listen to us. So, without further ado, we're going to have, a chat with Chris. If you have questions, I've asked you to go ahead, put them into chat, and let's see what we got here. Question. When's the best time to convert solo 401k traditional to Roth? So, questions like this are very, very specific to the taxpayer, right? So it's very important that you do not use or take boilerplate language in an effort to solve your personal circumstances. I will give you some high level thoughts, but everybody's personal taxes are unique and they can change on a dime. But there's a lot of things to take into consideration. And the first is, why are we in a 401k in the first place? Right. So that means that the decision that was made was that we wanted to lower our taxes today so that when we retired and we took the money out, the thought and the premise would be we would be in a lower tax bracket. Tax now, tax later, or tax never. Now, the advantage of the Roth is that it offers the tax never environment. Once you pay the taxes, then you're no longer taxed in the future. However, there are some strings attached. And the first one is you have to set up the Roth in the first place. There's a 5-year clock that's ticking that you have to be aware of, because although the money that can go into it, right? And in this case, the question was a conversion. So the assumption that I'm making here is, let's say for argument's sake, somebody has typically a solo 401k is done by a self-employed individual. All right, so let's say that self-employed individual earns $100,000 a year. What they're saying is, during the course of my self-employment, took advice or made a decision to squirrel away, and I'll just say $20,000 into a 401k. And what they said by making that election is that the taxes in the future will be lower when I go to retire. And let's say somewhere along that thought process, their awareness changed, or their opinion, they think taxes are going to be higher in the future. Well, they only paid tax on the $80,000 in the year that they made this election. Now what happens is the $20,000, let's assume that you want to convert all that into a Roth. The Roth needs to be established. There's a 5-year window. The $20,000 that will go into the Roth IRA, taxes on that $20,000 gets added to income the following year, and the taxes are then due. So when is the best time? There is no timeline on the actual during the year, other than maybe if your account values are down and we think that they will recover, well, therefore we could take it, like, let's say March of last year, you might have seen your 401k values went down. And if you think it's going to come back, well, then you could have converted that $20,000, but maybe the market value of the account went down. So maybe it was only worth 15. And then you paid tax from outside the account. But when the market recovered, all that money in that account has now grown and blossomed, and it's now in a tax-free environment. So it gets a little tricky. You should definitely not listen to water cooler advice. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is that if you decide maybe you just want to contribute to a Roth, well, then income levels, whether you're single, married, filing jointly, there are restrictions on how much or that level you can put in. But let's assume that you qualify. If you wanted to make a contribution for 2020, you have until April 15th of this year to make that contribution. So that's a great question. Thank you for that. And hopefully that answered. Let's see, I have another one. Should I pay extra each month on my mortgage? And I will give a very legalese response. It depends. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. We, myself personally, we at Professional Planning Services, the advisor network that I belong to, we're all huge proponents of not having debt. However, there is a philosophy out there that's called managed debt. So just being able to say, hey, you know what? Think about it this way. Let's say that your mortgage was 4%. And let's say that the bank is offering you 1% on your money. Let's say you wanted to make a $500 extra payment. What you're doing is you're eliminating a 4% debt or obligation or interest payment for the election of, let's say I could have had that money grow in my savings account at 1%. So mathematically, it might make sense to reduce the mortgage. However, there's a caveat here. Let's say you took a mortgage out today, and let's say you negotiate terms, and let's say that the mortgage rate for that you're able, and I know right now 30-year mortgages are going for about 3%. 3%. If I negotiated terms with the bank that said that I could borrow money at 3%, how much would you borrow? Well, if the place where I put the money could get a better rate of return than 3%, I'd borrow as much as I could. So if you made it through the Jimmy Carter years, back when mortgage rates were 10, 12, we had an advisor that had a CD in Tennessee, 21%. Typically, mortgage rates and CD rates are correlated. So imagine that interest rates spike, right? That inflation starts to rear its head again, and interest rates go back to, say, 10%, double digit. If you have a 3% mortgage, and a bank is paying 10% on a CD now, but you've now eliminated your mortgage, like you've rushed to a whooping. You would now to borrow that money against your house because there is no rate of return on equity in your house. Your house does not send you a 1099 house at the end of the year showing you how much money you made on your equity because there is no return on equity. So what you've done is eliminated a very low cost borrowing rate and now to borrow money out of the house 10 years into the future, 15 years into the future, and now current lending rate environments is 10%, it was a very expensive mistake. I always say exercise caution, right? We always like our clients to be in control of their money. You want to be in a position where the only person that you have to ask access to your money is you or your spouse. If you turn around and you pay off your mortgage, so let's just say you follow a traditional mortgage, you grew up in the Great Depression, and back when they could repossess your house on a whim, you right, accelerated, and now you have no debt. And I have many clients that come in and they're very proud, and they'll slap their statement down on my desk and they'll say, I have no mortgage, I have no debt, and they're proud. And I applaud them because I love no debt. But what they're missing is they now have created an asset that is generating 0% rate of return on their investment. And if I basically rephrase this statement, I said, hey, if I told you I'm going to give you 0% on your money, how much money would you give me? Squadouche is a technical term. 0. So we have to think about, what are we trying to accomplish? It's not a cut and dry answer. I love when folks can get out of debt, but the difference of what I just said there is getting out of debt and having no mortgage and saying I don't owe the bank anything is a good position. I'm not saying it's a bad position. But if you were able to have a note at 3% for the next 30 years, and I got an account over here that's earning 7% or 8%, and it's liquid, and I could stroke a check and be out of debt. Now, which position is better? And that's what we teach folks along the way, is how to be strategic with your planning, how to not interrupt compounding, how to not make the banks richer. Because think about what banks are doing. If banks can lend you money, and banks have, if they only made X amount of dollars on one type of loan, how many loans would they offer? They'd offer one. But banks make money by, everybody thinks they make money based on, okay, well, if I take my money, they lend it out to somebody and they charge a higher interest rate. Yes, that is one way that banks make money. But how they really make money, there's actually two additional ways that they make money. Fees is another one, but velocity is the second. And that is something that I teach. It's called the velocity of money, because what you have to understand is if a 30-year mortgage was, let's say they could lend it to you at 3%, but they're going to give you a 15-year mortgage and maybe they only charge 2.85%. What you have to understand from their position, from their lending perspective, what you're doing is you're accelerating the payoff time that they can now turn around and take the money that they lent you, take the interest that they lend you, and repeat that process more often, quicker. So bottom line is, it depends on your circumstances. Getting out of debt is always good. Should you pay extra? It depends, if it helps you to sleep at night. There's an expression I heard a long time ago that I borrowed. You don't hurry to a whooping, right? So if you know you're going to get spanked, which is what the banks are doing when they're giving us these great deals, you don't hurry to eliminate a low borrowing rate like environment like we're in now. You don't hurry to eliminate that, right? Knowing that possibly that in the future interest rates could spike to double digits. I got a little off track there, but hopefully that made sense. Do we have any other questions from anybody? And again, if you do have anything specific to you, just please keep it general. And then if we want to answer it offline, and can do that well. But what do we got here? Question. I've been laid off. What should I do to get my ducks in a row? All right. So this is, unemployment right now in October. We've got 320 million people in this country, of which 11 million are not working. So it's about a 7% unemployment rate. It was much higher. We were approaching last year in COVID. It was really spiking. It was double digits, almost 30%. But now it's corralled itself. Now, but I do think we may see some interesting times going forward, because small businesses, right, are going, PPP continues to go on. We'll be able to keep people employed. But let's say that you've been, given notice, right? That your employer has said, hey, we're either a merger and acquisition, or we've decided to move in another direction. It's not you, it's me, right? Let's say that that's happened to you. There's some things that I think you should do to prepare. The first is immediately apply for unemployment. Make sure if you have any access to a severance package that you get and utilize that first before you apply for unemployment. And then lastly, I would say that quite often, if you had a 401k, typically you don't want to leave your 401k behind at your old employer. You actually want to be able to have control of your money. So what we typically will suggest is opening an IRA and rolling that, a direct transfer, trustee to trustee transfer. It's very important, because it's very fragile or delicate. If you make a wrong election and your old employer and the third party administrator, plan administrators, they send those checks to you, and the IRS gets notified that you've received all of your 401k balance, it could generate a taxable event. And that could be absolutely devastating. So let's just take some simple math. Let's say you got $300,000 401k, you turn around and you didn't know, and the person that you talked to, water cooler advice, you got it, they sent you the check, you turn around and put it into your account and said, oh, well, I thought I had time. And next thing you know, the IRS sends you a notice. Thank you very much. You probably have bumped yourself up into almost one of the highest tax brackets. $300,000 of income on top of whatever you were earning, right? So let's just call that 400, could put you pretty close to 37% plus state. So we'll call it 45 cents on the dollar, right? You just probably made a $120,000 mistake to the tax man because they want their money now. And then that's when all the liens start. That's when all the filings start. And you got to be very careful. So, dealing with an expert in this arena is absolutely critical. It happens. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you, but having professional guidance is important. Question, should I take a line of credit on my house? So this goes back to what I was talking about before and having equity in your house, having something that an asset that's earning 0% rate of return typically isn't prudent. But what I would say here, I used to ask this question all the time, belly to belly, knee to knee, in my office, when I'm talking to clients, I would say, let me ask you this question. When is the time to look for a job? And I'm silent. When's the time to look for a job? And the answer is when you have one. When you have a job is the best time to be looking for other options. You don't wait until you're laid off because then everybody and their mother's looking for the job. Well, if that logic makes sense to you, then what I'm going to say is, when is the time to look for money? And the answer is before you need it. See, what happens in the lending arena with the banking industry, you have to qualify in order to have access to your money. So if you've gone ahead and followed traditional advice and dumped all the money into your house, your home equity, and then you say, hey, I'm very proud. I have no debt. I have no mortgage. And although again, I applaud that. But what if life happens? I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've seen things happen. So now let's say that the event that caused you to need money, let's say you have an accident, can't work, you had no disability insurance, you had some medical bills that came up. So you walk into the bank and there's a 27-year-old kid, just graduated college, got a suit and tie on, and you say, hey, Mr. Banker, I'd like access to my money in my house. And they said, hey, I'm really sorry to hear this happen to you, but you have to qualify. What do you mean qualify? That's my money. It's my house. The only way for you to access it is you must either get a loan against it, a home equity line of credit, or you must sell the house. And that's why it goes back to what I was saying earlier about having control. I don't know what the future holds for anybody, but one of the pieces of advice that we always give is go get yourself a home equity line of credit. There's no cost for it. If there is, it's very minimal. And you want to shop it around. You don't go to the big boys. Don't go to PNC and TD Bank and all these, go to your local community bank, like a PPAC Gladstone or Roma Bank or somebody local, Investor Savings, right? Some of these local banks, Valley National, they are in a position, they're still got to qualify, but you're doing it when you didn't need the money. And the notes are typically, it's just, think of it like a line of credit, right? It's like a credit card. If you never use it, if you never turn around and draw on it, there's no cost. Now, if your personality is if you spend every nickel that's in your pocket, and as soon as you have access to the equity in your home, you're going to go out and buy bass boats and RVs, then don't do it. But if you want protection for uncertainty in life, this is an avenue that you can do and take advantage of that will allow you to be better served should something unexpected happen. So, that's my opinion there. I don't know. We're almost at the hour there. Let's see. Do we have? What will the stock market do next? Okay, not certain who sent that in, but all right. I don't have a freaking clue. I got a magic 8-ball. Remember that? I got one. It's around here. Remember when we were a kid? You shake that ball, and whatever the answer is, not likely. Right? So that's what the market will do. The market's, here's what I know absolutely for a fact. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. Reply, hazy. Try again. Very good, Harry. So Harry remembers. Um, yeah, but what I will caution you, and absolutely, I was talking to an advisor yesterday about this. Be careful of the news, what you're hearing on TV. Everybody's giving you their opinion. Part of what I've been doing over the last year, hopefully, that's brought value to you, is helping you to have a perspective, a broader global reality. See, when we see on TV that the market's up at all-time highs, well, what they're talking about is the Dow and the S&P. Those are very small components of a global market. So let's just look at the S&P. It's top 500. It's cap weighted. It's being held up right now by 4 or 5 stocks. You got your Amazons, your Fangs, your Netflix, your Googles. 4 or 5 stocks are holding up the entire all-time high. How long is that possible? I don't know. Next week, I'm going to do my call on, the glass is half full. There's a lot of indication that we're going to continue this bull run. Now, I just did a call, 3 weeks ago before the holidays on the contrarian theories, right? And explaining what that means. So I've asked some of my clients to take some risk off the table. I don't have a clue as to what the market's going to do, but we should be strategic in whatever our approach is, and we should not be emotional in our decisions. One thing is certain in life, and that is change. So folks, I want to thank all of you for being on the call today. If anybody has any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace, right? Hopefully you got a little bit out of this. There were some good questions. I've introduced some thought processes that maybe you hadn't thought about or considered before. I hope to see you. Don't keep me a secret. If you got questions and didn't want to open up the mic and ask me, that's fine. Reach out to me. Call me. My cell phone, 732-887-3676. I'm always available. If I miss you, I'll call you back, right? I'm here. I've been around for a long time. I'm here to give back to the community. I can help. And if I don't know the answer, I don't know everything, right? But I'm in this market day in and day out with not only my clients, but all my advisors across the country and their clients. I hear and see a lot. My ear is to the ground on a daily basis, and I'll help you put my opinion, what I see, into perspective. So everybody, thank you for your time today. Chris Lester, Professional Planning Services. Let's go rock on 2021, and let's get through this COVID environment. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Bye-bye.